Tonight is a another fun night of the Deep End podcast, and a special night because we have another guest outside of our institution. I'm joined by Hank and Dr. Justine Lee. So thanks for joining tonight. Um,
Thanks for having me.
of course. And before we started or start kind of going through a list of questions and chatting, I just wanted to bring up the first time we met each other. We were stuck in an elevator at the association. I think I tell this to you all the time. And thinking back, so Hank, we were actually in an elevator. It was me, Dr. Lee, like Paul Soderna, Peter Taub, a bunch of medical students, a bunch of residents. The elevator was jam-packed. And then all of a sudden it stopped. And not only did it stop, but it wasn't going anywhere. And it turned into like, it started off with a lot of fun. And then some medical students started crying. Others were excited. Others were like excited to be trapped in an elevator with Dr. Justine Lee, Paul Soderna. It was like the ideal scenario for medical students. But anyways, so that's where we met. And after that point, I remember you and I connected, but then you also kind of mentored me from far by getting me involved in PSF grant reviews and PSRC and a lot of other things. So it kind of opened my eyes to what a special person you are, and I thank you for mentoring me from afar. But that was a crazy night.
Well,
And
first of
all
all,
the
thank you
things
for
that
the
you wanted
kind
to ask
words.
me asked tonight.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Little did you know, you're just, a new recruit to all the things that plastic surgery needs to have done. So I thank you for participating. And yeah, that night was yeah, it was memorable. I'm not sure it was memorable in a good way for some people, and it
No.
was one that we have all collectively decided we will not repeat that.
Okay, good. Because I went from being like having a lot of fun for like the first 5 minutes to then last 5 minutes sort of freaking out. So
Yeah, kind of, especially when people start crying in their
yeah.
medical students, that was problematic.
Yeah. But anyways, the other thing that I wanted to mention, and you told me not to bring this up, but I have to bring it up, but reading through your bio, I don't care when it was written, makes me feel like I am so unaccomplished. And it's amazing how much you have done, and you're truly inspiring to a lot of us, and a lot of the people that listen to the podcast wanted us to get you on. So I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. Um, but the first thing I kind of want to talk about, it sounds like you're kind of an LA lifer, more or less, but clearly you were doing some things right growing up, or your family, or someone's influence in your upbringing. And so, can you talk a little bit about your upbringing, high school, and what were kind of the important influences on you that helped kind of mold you into where you are now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think my parents have so much to do with it. Just really, really great parents. And we
What do they
didn't
do?
come. So my father's an engineer, and my mom kind of ended up doing something that she wasn't necessarily like trained for, very clerical type of stuff. She was working for the County of Los Angeles in the probation department, basically talking to criminals and reducing their financial fines for the
Mm.
county. But she is really like a literature person, Chinese literature actually. They
Oh,
were both
wow.
educated in Taiwan. Yeah, so they were both born around the end of the Second World War, and they're so that was kind of a really rough era for anyone growing up during that time. All around the world, there wasn't like a nobody had much, I think, and everybody had hardships that we could not even imagine,
Yeah.
and those types of hardships, like for example my father, oh my gosh, terrible story. So my father was born, and eventually ended up in Taiwan for school. But interim, when he was in Southeast Asia, that was when the rise of um, communism was happening, and his family was in Vietnam, and then the Viet Cong were sort of starting to take over, and so his family actually left, and around the late 60s, early 70s or something, but their whole ship sank, and so he
Oh
lost
my
his
gosh.
family. I know, like hardships that
Wow.
are like we could not even imagine that. So my father's family is part of the Malaysian boat people. They're buried in Malaysia, and that
Uh-huh.
was like the sort of group of people trying to leave Vietnam at the time. My mother's family, for the most part, they were, um, they my grandparents had a lot to do with the resistance against the Japanese invasion
Mhm.
before the World War, or around the World War, but before it ended. And then afterwards settled in Southeast Asia briefly before ending up in Taiwan. So that's where they came from, which means as
Yeah.
like immigrants to the US, this is like kind of a very different life than the way
Hmm.
they were brought up. And so with that sort of in mind, it was like the late 60s when they immigrated here. So it was struggles from the standpoint of trying to make it as like a young couple. And um, one engineer with that weren't so many, Asian professionals really, frankly, at the time. But thankfully, in California, my dad was given a chance at a firm called Parker Hannifin. I don't know that they exist anymore, but it's aerospace engineering. Yeah. So and then the rest is pretty much history. So then we settled
Wow.
here. My mom got a job here. Um, my brother and I were both born here, and but I think that sort of background
Hmm.
really shapes how you grow up because very very frugal family, but at the
Yes,
same time, very there's a lot of grit for sure from them,
for
and that kind
sure.
of gets passed down. Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like we had a interview with Lisa Wu. She said the same thing, her family
Mm,
were
mm,
immigrants, and you kind of
hmm.
have that work ethic, etc. And so, what was
Yeah.
were your parents pretty disciplined? Like, did they did you have a strict schedule growing up and things like that, or
Mhm. Um, Not necessarily. We were actually very not strict from that standpoint. My mom is a little crazy. We, I remember we used to like fall asleep around 10, and then she'd wake us up and be like, "Why are you guys sleeping? You should be studying."
Yeah.
But I didn't end up with much studying. We ended up watching Star Trek and MASH a lot, and so we, know a lot about Star Trek.
Oh, really? That's funny. I feel like it was either Star Trek or Star Wars at one point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What were
Always.
your other favorite things to do other than studying when you were growing up? Watching TV late at night.
Well, I would say growing up for me, there was I actually did quite a bit of dance, and we did some martial
Mhm.
arts. And yeah, those
That's
are
really
sort of
cool.
like, yeah, we didn't do team sports. That wasn't,
Yeah.
that's not part of the immigrant mentality. It's like, why would you do
Martial
that?
arts does not seem like a team sport. Let's just start
No,
there.
no, no, no team sports. No team sports. Team sports seemed, I don't know, my mom thought it was like a strange thing. Why would you do team sports?
That's so funny. Do you have any siblings?
I do. A brother, he's 6 years younger than me.
Oh, that's awesome. And then what did you have any influence growing up to say, I am at one point going to do medicine, or what inspired you growing up to even get down that path? I know a little bit
Mhm.
about it, but I wanted the audience to hear it.
Well, it was always something that we don't have any doctors in the family, so
Mm.
my parents were, when I was a kid, we like, that sounds like a really good job, you could take care of us. And so that was sort of in the background. And ultimately, um, it sounded like a good idea. And then as time went on, as I explored more, really in college and all that, it did seem like that was the way to go. Mhm.
Yeah. And what did you have any exposures to science early? Like actually like science or research or anything?
Not until college, really. When I was 17, the summer after I graduated from high school, I just could not take it anymore. I had to leave suburbia. And so I showed up at UCLA and signed up to be the undergrad in a lab and pipetted 1 ml a million times. But
What
actually that
why
was
did you do that?
well, I think like mainly for just the adventure. Just I
Hmm.
didn't know anything about labs. I've never been in a lab before. And I figured, I mean, you know, for college, new experiences type of thing, that I'd just check it out. And I turned and that turned into like, you know, 4 years and then a lifetime. Pretty much, yeah. So it
I was
just
gonna
kept on
say
going.
you must have fell in love with it because then you decided to pursue, an MD and a PhD. So that pipetting,
Mhm.
must have stuck with you or something. What drew you to pursuing a PhD and medicine at the same time?
Mhm.
Because that's pretty unique.
Yeah, I think that the during undergrad, you may be able to explore a little bit about medicine, but there's not that much true exposure. But with lab, like, it started when it started early, and then that the responsibility started to kind of increase, and then also freedom started to increase. And I think the whole creative thinking and being able to solve problems and to think about things and kind of, in a certain way, like make things up and check it, that was really, really drew me in. And I think, it has a lot of parallels with plastic surgery. Plastic surgery is just lab, but faster.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Way faster.
Yeah.
Um, who were did you have like mentors at that point, like in undergrad, who shaped your love for science? Or were you kind of
Yeah.
like, or were you self-driven? Because I did 2 years of basic science where
Mhm.
I kind of went in and out of having to kind of motivate myself to do it. At first, it was a lot of struggles and took a while to
Mhm.
get any reward. So it's kind of a tough time unless you have good mentorship.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't really, I mean, if I trace it back, I spent 1 year pipetting 1 ml of tritiated gut juice. And then
Mm.
I know,
As I
fantastic.
take a sip of my tea.
Yeah. Just for you, say, just for you. So I spent a year doing that. And then I thought I should, start checking out other things. So then I spent like a couple of months in with a biotech, like a little startup biotech company. Startup as in it was in that person's home.
Wow.
I know. That's maybe another story some other time. But anyway, but then that sort of experience then resulted in a different lab where I was starting to do molecular biology and cell biology and started to get good at my little things that I had to do. Then it started to get exciting because I was very good at it. And then um, and then like my very last mentor was one who treated me like a graduate student and was just like, just go type of thing. Her name is Kathy Clark. We were studying ubiquinone biosynthesis. She's actually still on campus, hasn't
Wow.
retired yet. I
That's so
know, right?
cool.
Yeah, I know. She's
Yeah.
fantastic. But yeah, I think that was so, that was very, that was like a very, very much a important moment when I was kind of handed that amount of leeway to kind of do what I wanted to do, and prepped me for the PhD and made me decide on I should I don't think I can give this up just yet.
Mhm. So then why plastic surgery? Or why? So then medical school is probably what made you choose plastic surgery?
Yeah, that was a pure accident.
That's a very fortunate accident.
I would agree. For me, for
No,
me.
for you, you're super accomplished. It was more of an accident for me.
Well, thank you. Once again, thank you. But it was a definitely an accident for me. I thought I was going to be a pediatric hematologist oncologist. Made
Why is
sense
that?
because my dissertation work was all in
Mhm.
apoptosis, and with sort of like a cancer
Mhm.
bend on that, on trying to promote apoptosis and signaling in that aspect. And then, this entire time I'm thinking, I'll be a pediatrician. I love kids. Run a lab. I love lab. I'm going to study peds cancer because I studied cancer. Makes sense. And then I did surgery first because the conventional wisdom is you do something you probably won't do first because you're coming back from PhD, so you're gonna suck. It's gonna be
Yeah.
terrible.
Oh
And
gosh.
so I know.
This
So
is bring
then,
back so many memories of my medical school rotations.
yep, yep. So my first rotation was surgery, and just I did it at a community hospital. The community hospital happened to only have vascular surgery and plastic surgery and barely any general surgery. Yeah, I know, like I didn't see an appendectomy until residency. Never seen one. And
I
then
don't think you're missing much.
I know, right? I know. But my faculty member there, Larry Zachary, it was just phenomenal. Another like defining moment in development because, well, first of all, I made it so fun. Larry just retired recently. He's hilarious. He does have some traumatic brain injury, a little
Oh.
frontal release, but from an accident and all that. But
Mhm.
he did wonderfully for himself. Only recently retired, um, but he made it fun, and we were doing body contouring cases, and so there's a lot of sewing, and then I realized that this is just so fun, and then I came on campus and accidentally had plastic surgery as my elective, not at all thinking I was interested in plastic surgery, just picked it because I was watching Extreme Makeover and I thought that was hilarious and I was wondering what they were doing. Little did I know that or Extreme Makeover was like with, terrible wounds and things like Marjolaine's ulcers. So there was no actual cosmetic surgery action going on. But that then kind of solidified that. Um, when I was in on my plastic surgery rotation, I remember my faculty member at the time, Rob Lohman, um, hands me the saw to cut off the femur, and that was it. We were doing like
Wait, that was plastic surgery?
a hip disarticulation for a Marjolaine's ulcer
Oh,
at
okay.
9 p.m. at night.
Okay.
Wait, I actually sawed off a femur with Dr. Wink like yesterday
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, funny.
for an AKA revision.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And now you're busy attending endowed chair all of a sudden at UCLA, the place where you trained. But to rewind a little bit, you trained under Kawamoto, which is an incredible, incredible honor. He's like I've heard so many special things about him, and he's one of the people who I wish
Hmm.
like I had the opportunity to just scrub into his OR or observe him at least for a
Hmm.
day.
Hmm.
How was that experience?
Oh, that was incredible. So I'll backtracking to Chicago. That's like my family, the University of Chicago. Actually, Lisa was my chief resident when I was a medical student, which is
Yeah.
actually kind of funny.
Oh,
But
that is cool. She was your chief resident?
when I was a third year
Uh-huh.
medical student. She was my chief resident.
How
But
how is she, how is she? We won't let her listen to this podcast.
um,
I'm just kidding.
like I don't think she's changed. She's exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
So if you imagine Lisa as a resident, she's exactly the same.
Yeah. Like focused, organized, will get the job
Right.
done. Yeah.
Fast.
She was probably the best resident. Same with you.
No, no. Lisa was definitely the best resident. But anyway, you know, we didn't really have the same volume and the same complexity in craniofacial surgery. So coming to UCLA and then working with Henry Komodo, that sort of like I saw this pathology I'd never seen before and had only sort of seen a little bit here and there in textbooks. So, and then jaw surgery. I mean, I think we did like one Lafort, one during residency. It was not, we're more a cancer center. So it was very, it was eye-opening. And I think the thing I appreciate many things about um, Dr. Kawamoto, but the thing that I appreciate the most is that when he is at his best, when everything is unclear. And that's always amazing to me that like there'd be unclear where this like fibrous dysplasia, for example, is going and where would it end, and then what should we do? And that is when he's at his absolute best. In
Really?
addition to that, he's extra fast. So I
Well, that's
learned how to
always
be
good.
fast.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's nice to have a fast attending. We always love those attendings.
Right.
But fast
Right.
and good, that's special.
Hmm. Right.
So what do you mean he did best when he was like, was that because he was so
Hmm.
curious about it? Is that
Yeah.
why?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. As you know, like a Lafort one is in to a certain degree going through the motions. It's not it's not a mystery what we're doing. Even like a monoblock, it's a mystery what we're doing. But
Hmm.
it's when it's out of the ordinary and out of the ordinary of even sort of like the complex congenital stuff where we actually have to make some decisions and think about that and how to make it aesthetically a beautiful reconstruction. That's when he's at his best.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you were the 34th fellow.
Yes.
How many fellows did he have?
34.
No way.
I'm the last.
Wow, what an honor. That's so great. Do you keep in touch?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he's living his best life now. He lives in Malibu and he's hanging out I mean, he's literally on the beach. Um, with his dog and hanging out and just as active as he's been. I actually had dinner with him maybe 2 months ago or so.
Oh, that's so great.
Hmm.
So, what I'm curious about is, growing up in LA, you were probably surrounded by a lot of plastic surgery or inundated, in a cosmetic way. Did that give you any bias or make you think one way about plastic surgery that caused it to be more eye-opening when you
Hmm.
were exposed to craniofacial or when you were exposed as a medical student? Do you think,
Hmm.
explain to me a little bit about that, if that's true?
Well, believe it or not, when you leave the west side of LA, there's not that much plastic surgery. So, where I grew up was in Hacienda Heights, which is within LA County. And in that area is a predominantly Latino and Asian community, working class, lower middle class. And the plastic surgery we knew about was on TV from like things like Extreme Makeover and various other shows during that time. And then even when I came to college at UCLA, like it was not something that we were really exposed to, or at least I didn't figure I wasn't exposed to it. And so it didn't shape my decision making at all. Although I would say probably from the standpoint of just popular media, it was, kind of like a little bit unsavory.
Yeah. Um, And then now you have started, well, you have a lab. How long have you had a lab for?
Ever since I started here, so
Yeah.
like over a decade now.
So how do you s- the, between the lab operating, all the mentorship you do, society, like how do you make time for your lab and your science? Do you have like set aside a day a week, or how do you do that? Obviously,
Hmm.
that requires teamwork, regardless of what your sports upbringing was. A lab requires teamwork.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I've been very lucky with the people I have in lab. Um, and so that has really helped. But I have always had one day a week that I've set aside always for research from the very beginning. And I think that
That's
I'm
huge.
not, yeah, I don't know that I could have done it otherwise. Always had that time.
Mhm. And then do you have postdocs, like medical students, residents,
Hmm.
the whole spectrum in your lab?
Yeah, not so much residence because we don't have an extra year built in
Hmm.
to the residency. But when I first started, it was me and my senior scientist, just the two of us. And she's
Hmm.
been just really gold, and very exceptional scientist, Xiaoyan Ren, and she has really trained everybody who's been in lab, all the postdocs, all the students, undergrads, graduate students, everybody. Without her, it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
Outstanding scientist. Hmm.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you're currently studying and what your lab is focused on?
So I have basically two arms to the lab. One arm is basic translational, and then the other arm is clinical. So in the basic lab, we've been studying regenerative materials for a long time because my background is cell biology, even though we were studying cell death. Now we're trying to regenerate tissue, so the opposite, but same difference. So we do a lot of cell biology on materials, specifically skeletal regenerative materials, and also we generate things like second generation versions of the materials that we study, with the idea of hopefully one day we'll be able to take that and have that as like a little implant you can use from the operating room to kind of plug some bony holes. Um, and then on the clinical side, I have always been interested in like psychosocial type of outcomes related
Mhm.
to all of our surgeries. It started with mainly the pediatric patients. How are they
Yes.
doing? Because, right, because I think Hank, you may have noticed this also. I'm sure Saeed has, but sometimes we do like a great surgical job and you got a patient who's kind of like, not super happy. And then sometimes we
Mhm.
do a okay surgical job and you got a patient who's ridiculously happy. So there's a disconnect there. And like as a specialty, as a quality of life specialty, we haven't quite figured out where we are and how to optimize that. And so that's been interesting for me, for the kids, and now in the gender affirming space, which is where my surgical practice has headed in the past 7 years. Really important for that specific space, not just for our understanding, but also for their access to care, and anything related to policy, because we suffered from like a lack of rigorous evidence there, since the very beginning.
No, and the whole studying of differential response to surgery outcomes and how patients do is so fascinating.
Hmm.
Because you're right, sometimes I'm surprised by how happy patients are,
Right.
and sometimes they're upset when I'm extremely happy. It's
Hmm.
and also the various, especially I feel like gender affirming care. It's a
Hmm.
I guess that's a good segue into your fellowship. So, congratulations. That's amazing that you're able to start that fellowship. How many fellows have you had so far?
Thank you, and thanks for the plug.
Yeah, yeah, of course. You don't need a plug.
Yes. Um, well, we actually just got it approved last October. So we've only gotten
Mm,
it approved a little over a year. Our first
mm,
fellow is Lee Miller from the University of Miami. He's starting in August of next year, so August 2025. And so we have purposefully not entered the match just yet since it's so
mhm.
new. So we're kind of on a rolling basis. So any PGY5s out there, come let me know.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
I've been talking to one of our junior residents who's a PGY4 to
Mm.
try to convince her to apply. So I feel like she'd be the perfect fit. Um,
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
what match are you a part of?
So we're not part of a match yet. So we could
Okay.
potentially be part of the gender match.
Yeah.
Um, that would probably be the best place for us, 'cause
Hmm.
since even though it's a focus on facial gender affirming surgery, the goal is to generate gender affirming surgical leaders. And so
Hmm.
um, we do have some multidisciplinary components to it, as in like, spending some time with our general health primary care physicians, behavioral health physicians, endocrinologists, as well as the UCLA School of Law Williams Institute is one of the most premier think tanks on LGBTQ plus social science,
Hmm.
very, very strongly involved in the US Transgender Survey. And so we've had this collaboration with them for some time now. And the thinking is that the fellow would potentially continue in that collaboration should they have interest in health policy, but really in this specific surgical space, be difficult to not know anything about it. It'd be very difficult to like actually run a team, have a practice.
Yeah. And the focus is the face, right? It's basically face.
Yeah, the focus is the face. You know, because I don't really do any bottom surgery
Hmm.
at all, and I definitely don't do any chest surgery either. As a center, we do have surgeons who do top surgery as well as a strong collaboration with urology, and so the fellow would also be spending a little bit of time with both sides too. I think top surgery, I think most people can, agree that you don't necessarily need a fellowship for that. And then bottom surgery, not everybody's interested in doing like bottom surgery. It's quite
Hmm.
complex and all of that.
Hmm.
And so, but of course, access is open there too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the fellowship's going to be a great venue for you to channel all of your mentorship abilities because one thing that everyone always talks about you is mentorship and how great you are at it. And I know you don't like me to say these things, but you are, and even I got to experience it a little bit. So what do you think, what gives you happiness in what brings you happiness in being a good mentor? And what do you think helps build like a good mentor-mentee relationship?
Well, I guess I don't honestly think a lot about, how to mentor or styles and things
You
like
just do
that.
it. But one thing that I thought about is not to interrupt you, but you mentioned earlier about how you're in the operating room and your mentor at the time made things fun.
Yeah.
And you almost seem like somebody who's like, serious when you need to be, but a lot of fun, and you give off this excitement for what you're doing, which is very contagious. I really find that because it's my mentors who I've watched, like Scott Levin, be very excited about surgery. I know Hank, we've had these discussions before, watching people getting excited, having fun at what you do, even if you're not trying to do it, it's probably the most useful thing as a mentor, to at least show that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you, Said.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that should go for pretty much anyone in any job, anywhere. Of course, sometimes we do things out of necessity, and I recognize that not everybody is as fortunate as we are to actually do something that we absolutely love. And so I think it's only worth doing if it's fun
Hmm.
to each individual. And for me, um, it's fun for me to operate. It's fun for me to do research in both realms. It's fun for me to see people succeed, come in and like, you know, just watch them kind of grow and all that. That's exciting to me to see that stuff happen. Um, yeah, I guess, and then I guess the other thing is, to not micromanage anyone. Because I would say that some of the defining points in my life has been when I was given the freedom to do whatever I wanted, however I wanted to do it. And the challenge is to set a bar that's like higher than what that person thinks they can actually achieve. And when they achieve it, everybody's happy. I'm happy, they're happy.
Well, like you mentioned, like when you were in the lab and your person treated you like a graduate student,
Uh-huh.
you know?
And
Uh,
and to Saeed, to build on your point about it being contagious, I think Dr. Lee, you're living proof that it is because your story at the beginning of this podcast was how you weren't thinking about plastic surgery, but you had such a good time. And when you were first exposed to it, you just had a lot of fun. And that's exactly what you're saying, that you like to give to others and to medical students and residents and have them find the same passion and love that you found when you first started.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I mean, I never really thought about it so much, but yeah, you're right. It was because it was fun.
Yeah. Well, maybe good mentors don't actually think about what they're doing. It's just like natural.
You just embody it.
Yeah. And then to add on top of your pretty busy schedule, you're chair-elect of PSRC. Um,
Oh, thanks for a second plug. Thank you.
yeah. Again, you don't need plugs for these. These are things that most people know. But that's super exciting. Congratulations again. But what do
Thank
you
you.
think your goals are? By the way,
Oh, oh,
PSRC,
yeah.
whoever you have, I mean, all of you, and including me, because I'm involved as well. Like, but credit goes to you guys, have made it such a fun and educational conference. It's
Uh,
become hands down one of my favorite conferences for sure.
hmm Yeah, the people make it all
Yes.
happen for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a goal. My goal is okay, pick out who you don't like in each program. Okay, your program, everybody's program. Those people are on call. Everybody else is going to clear out and come to LA.
Perfect.
That's the goal.
Hopefully, I don't get stuck on call because that's a bad sign.
Well, maybe you just don't tell them the dates yet.
Yeah. But what are you most excited about?
I think that like first of all, I'm excited to have everyone come to LA because LA
Yeah.
is my home. So it's not just a place where I work, but it's my home. So we're having like a giant plastic surgery party in my home. So that's super exciting. Um,
It's
you
fun to
know,
be able to show off your hometown. I experience that. It's so
yeah,
much fun.
so much fun, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
much fun for the flap course you're talking about.
Flap course, but also I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. It's a very small town, but I love to take my friends there
Mm,
and show it off, you know?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really exciting. So, we're setting it like right in the middle of Hollywood, so people can, be walk downstairs and be on the Walk of Fame. We're
Oh,
gonna do
that's so
members res
cool.
I know, right? I know.
I was gonna
It's
say not to
funny.
burst your bubble, Saeed, but I think LA is a little bit cooler than North Virginia.
Well, I know. I think so too. It's funny when I hear like people from California talk about like Malibu and beaches. I wonder what you guys think of like us on the East Coast where it's like freezing, there's nothing to do.
I'm gonna tell you guys something. You might not want to know this, but it's 75 degrees today, and the high
Yeah,
was 80
that's
today.
really nice.
So you went to
But
University of Chicago, and then right away you're like, I gotta find my way back to LA.
yeah, it took about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And I
Yeah.
loved my time in Chicago, but I knew I had to come home.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I'm excited for everyone to come over. Oh, and also the members reception. That's going to be at Paramount Studios. So we're going to be on set.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it's so
So
LA.
cool.
We're going to be on the New York set.
That is
to
so
coming to LA to
awesome.
go to New York.
That is so cool. Yeah. That's
But
like perfect.
thanks for the plug. Thanks for allowing me to pitch it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this makes it even more. I mean, it's very fitting for PSRC because it's going to be a lot of fun, but I'm sure it's going to be high power educational content, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we'll definitely see you there. So a few questions that we kind of ask most guests. Hindsight's 2020.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you could go back and do differently?
Oh, I would have taken more time off.
Hmm.
Is I'm in
You don't
I'm
seem
still
like
like
somebody
the
that would have wanted to take time off.
no, I didn't take any time off. But
Where would you have taken it?
no. I would have probably gone abroad and done like a study abroad year or something like that. I think that would have been really fun. Done a little bit
Yeah.
more traveling. Yeah, because
Yeah,
now we can travel, but there's no time.
I know.
Hmm.
Yeah. I wish I never did the study abroad thing either. Hank, did you ever do
Hmm.
that?
No, I never studied abroad, no.
Did
It's
you do
such a
gap years?
I did, I for research here, but not anything,
Hmm.
travel wise.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's such a great way to just continue learning, but doing it somewhere else that's cool.
Hmm.
So, um, and then how much sleep do you get a night? I
Um,
don't know why. That's a question that really fascinates me. I ask everyone, I'm like always so curious. I need 6 hours. I have to have 6 hours. Either five or
six is
six.
good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Agree. Five or six is good. Six is preferable, but anything less, I don't function that well, actually. So more than you think.
Yeah. And then what do you do outside of work?
Um,
Aside from the photo shoot I saw you at.
oh yeah, with one of
That was
your
a cool photo
residents.
shoot. Oh, really? Who?
Thanks. Yeah, Liz Card.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
that's cool.
well, that was for that's for an upcoming book.
Mm,
So we have a book on facial gender affirming surgery coming out. Liz is one of the illustrators. Ryoko Hamaguchi, as well as Aaron Wolf, another those two residents are also illustrators. My co-editor Suman Kepal, one of my residents, and then we have a couple medical students, Ann Hall and Neem Nguyen, who have been working on
mhm,
it pretty hard too. So, we part of that was like a celebration of everybody's work because we're nearing the end. We should be turning everything in the spring. And so hopefully it'll come out in the next either 2025, 2026, something like that. And so that's kind of celebrating the end of that.
mhm.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Uh, Here's a question that we ask everybody. If you were stuck in an
Okay.
elevator with Dr. Azori, what would you ask him? No, just kidding.
No,
Oh
that's
my gosh,
no, no,
because it
that's not
actually
true.
I'm just
happened.
kidding. Uh,
Except you didn't ask me anything.
I didn't, but the two of us, we were like, we got the like kind of like, oh my God, this is like, okay, we're gonna crash, and then the
Yes,
students
exactly.
are something's gonna happen to students, and then we're gonna have like an inquisition
you can
on like
tell
what were
me.
you guys doing?
You can tell me. Did Saeed cry? Was he one of the ones that was
I
crying?
didn't cry. If you put me in there for 10 more minutes, I might have.
I'm I no comment.
But a real question that we love to ask every guest is,
Mhm.
what's your favorite surgical instrument?
Oh, the stubby osteotome. Yeah, the
Good
Tessier
one.
stubby osteotome. It can do everything. It's stubby, it's very ergonomic, and you can easily take parietal bone from it. Bam, 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 bam. Super fun. Excellent instrument.
That's how you know you have a craniofacial surgeon on a podcast call. And if you weren't a plastic surgeon, what would you do?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, the obvious thing is I would just be in the lab. That
Mhm.
that would be obvious because I'd be very happy doing that too, although less happy than doing both. And then probably if I if I had a completely different career, um, maybe something in the arts.
Mm. That's really cool. You saying that you'd be in the lab makes you show how fun it is, and that's really awesome. I'm
Mhm.
glad you enjoyed so much.
I have one last
Yeah.
question. Uh,
Hmm.
do you listen to music in the OR? And if you do, what kind of music do you like to listen to?
No, no, it's totally silent. Everybody's like very serious in the OR. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I love 90s rap. I love 90s hip hop. So we listen to a lot of that. Of course, I love Michael Jackson because who doesn't, especially if you're from LA. Almost everybody
Yeah.
loves Michael Jackson. And so those are probably the go-tos. But the music interests are kind of diverse for me. Some things are like, more chill, but then everyone in the OR complains that it's too chill, like bossa nova, too chill for them.
Mhm. Yeah.
But mhm.
Um, well, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We won't keep you any later because it's rush hour in LA and you have to get home. Um, but really enjoyed chatting with you as always. Um, and you had a lot to share, so that was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you both for the invitation. I'm super impressed about,
Oh,
that the two of you put together this
Yeah.
cool podcast. I think it's the only one that I know of. Um,
yeah.
that is, so that's pretty awesome. And thanks so much for the invitation. It is truly an honor to talk to both of you.
Awesome.
Thank you. And we'll see you at PSRC.
See you soon.
Yes. All right. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.